Communications, there was 5 pieces. Is there any questions or comments on our communications? If none, mayor's report. Bob, you gonna read the mayor's report?
Yes, I will on the board.
Okay. Since we're in caucus room, is there any questions to Bob about the mayor's report? Legislation, we have 2 pieces.
We need to see about adding 2 more pieces.
I got 2 in front of me here.
Okay.
You want me to convene?
Yeah, go ahead and convene your committee.
Call this finance and legislation meeting to order. Mr. Bayes is absent. Mr. Ballack here. Mr. Bigley is here. We have 2 pieces. First one is an ordinance granting and establishing salaries for all appointees in the City of Struthers Street Department, excluding the working foreman, providing for vacation, holiday pay, and overtime for said employees retroactive to January 1st, 2023, repealing ordinance number 22-018, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. Need a motion to bring it out?
Make a motion to bring it out.
Second.
Got a question on that one, may I ask?
Yes.
They didn't get no raises at the beginning of the year,
No.
so this is,
Retro. Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only because they're not part of the union.
Right, I understand that, but when we went through the salary ordinances in a budget, we didn't give, they didn't get nothing.
They did not.
Oh.
What about the working street foreman? What are they gonna do with that?
Working street foreman falls under the department heads and same as everybody else, every other department, nobody got a raise this year.
No one got a raise.
Nobody got a raise.
No department heads.
No department heads, no secretaries, no anybody. You didn't pass any raise ordinances this year.
So I'm sure we'll revisit them this year. For this year's budget, pending how it looks. Okay, next one. An ordinance granting the Board of Control to facilitate and establish guidelines for the facade grant program for the City of Struthers and authorizing the auditor to pay the sum not to exceed $25,000 that shall be paid from the 2023 general fund budget and declaring an emergency. Motion to bring it out?
Make a motion to bring it out.
A second. That's it for finance and legislation. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. So going back to legislation, we have 4 pieces, right?
Correct. And your new agenda is underneath.
What's that?
The new agenda is under your packet.
Oh, gotcha, okay. Okay, the 4 pieces of legislation. Any questions or comments on the legislation? If none, unfinished business. Any unfinished business? New business? Greg, you got unfinished?
Well, yeah, I guess it's unfinished business. Someone told me today that maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea for a deer crossing sign on Glendale up there. How do you feel about that?
My opinion, my personal opinion, we don't need deer crossing signs. If you're going slow enough to watch out for children, watch out for the deer also. And you should be going slow enough to watch for children.
Where is that?
Anywhere in the city, in my opinion.
Well, sure, but Lori, where is this
It's on
pertaining
the
to?
north side.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay.
That,
It was just
that's my
brought to my
opinion on it. If you
attention,
tell me to put up a deer crossing sign, I will put up a deer crossing sign. But in my opinion, you should be going slow enough to watch for children. And you should watch out for the deer too if they have to jump in front of you.
Any other unfinished business? New business? Board of our law director's not here. Chrissy?
I've submitted a report for June and July. It's,
What's that report of?
statistical data.
It's in the middle of
Oh.
the table right there.
No, the cash report, the expense transaction ledger, and revenue report have been submitted, and
Questions or comments for our auditor?
How are we standing, okay?
okay,
Enjoy.
not great, but I think we're making
Above
some
water?
headway from where we started at
Above
the
water?
beginning of the year. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're still in cautious spending.
We should just stay in cautious spending. Why
We're in,
leave it? We should always be cautious
necessary
spenders.
spending mode.
John, you have any report or anything tonight?
I don't know if it was brought up, but just so you guys know, the judge formally resigned. Tom formally resigned. I believe, did that make it to your office?
September 29th, effective.
September 29th, okay.
So who will be?
So we'll have a stand-in, is that basically how that works?
It looks as if the state is just going to allow Ray to continue on until the election, and then once the election rolls around, whoever wins the election is probably just going to get an appointment to finish out the year.
So they'll get appointed as immediately.
That's what I've been hearing, yes.
Any other-
But no, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Any questions for the law director?
I don't think so.
Any other questions for our auditor since she isn't here? Safety director, Bob, anything?
I'm gonna give you a brief update on our ambulance, real brief. I mean, there's a ton of reports that come through this Medicom, but I pulled a couple of them. Our average runs per month is anywhere from 25 to 35 runs, would be an average. And we're
Just for
billing,
our ambulance?
that's for our ambulance, so we're looking at almost a run every single day for the ambulance. We're billing $1,050 on average for each run, and we're receiving $244 on average.
And that says, that's a
That's,
statement of why we're in this.
Basically, 1 out of 4 we're actually getting paid for.
no, it's not a matter of 1 out of 4, everybody pays, it's just that the government, especially Social Security, they only pay so much. So, and we do with the Social Security, you have to accept their amount.
You can't bill the patient as well, right?
You can, but it's usually not very feasible.
What is it costing us a run? Do you have any idea what
That
that is?
I haven't been able to pull yet, because I'm waiting a little bit longer, and then we'll find out how much our fire department's overtime has increased, how much our fuel consumption has increased.
Okay.
We
Now-
gotta get those more towards the end of the year.
With that, we don't have anybody, are these, the employees for that, are they on call? Or when they
A
need,
little bit of both. Our firemen, we got a few firemen that are paramedics and EMTs. If they're on duty, then they make the run. If they don't have anybody, then they'll call out. And we have, of course, our volunteer paramedic list, and we also have,
Yeah.
like I said.
But if they're on
firemen.
duty, they don't get paid extra, right?
No, they run like
right,
normal, but you may have to call out an off-duty fireman to cover, if he's at the hospital.
I think it's possible that we are using more overtime now than,
well, I mean, to me,
and I think it's
It-
related to that.
well, and also, I think time, from what I understand, time is kind of an issue a lot of the times, where we're not getting the ambulances for a long period of time until they get there, correct? Because they can't get people out
There's
to man it.
There's times, right.
I mean, that,
You're
right?
absolutely correct. Our response time is not always the quickest.
Is there like an average response time that we have that when we're using our ambulance?
No, because we always try to get EMT ambulance service first.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they come back and tell us that they don't have one available, then we tone out our guys to come
So
out.
that's like, bam, bam, we don't have one available, so we send ours.
And then we tone out right away,
Well,
yes.
But we don't send ours out right away, we try to get somebody to
Right,
send
but
out.
what's the time period between?
Between a denial and us
Us
toning
going-
out is probably only seconds.
So whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So it's quick.
But I think the issue that I'm trying to pertain to is, we call, they can't send anybody, we start calling people, what if we can't find someone? Then, It's just
If
not
it's a
run.
progressive, then we go to
Right.
Poland Township and see if they can send us an ambulance.
But Poland Township doesn't transport our patients to the hospital, correct? They
That-
just come for aid. They don't,
No, they will transport if the need is required.
okay.
I
Have
don't
we
think they
had
can
to,
refuse once they.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's.
Okay.
have we had to resort to that
Not
yet?
too often. Most of the time, our gentlemen
But we have.
are able to respond.
Okay.
So is this, I've been kind of thinking about, is this something that Camel, Struthers, and Lowville should look into, to having a joint fire,
Campbell
ambulance
decided
service?
to pay EMT ambulance service $300,000 a year for ambulance service.
To retain their services.
So that the Campbell Fire Department, I don't believe they're set up to assist in ambulance service. Poland Township is going full-time with their ambulance service. And again, that will be a mutual aid thing. If they get so many calls that they need our ambulance to back them up, then we're gonna back them up, and the same with us. Most of the time, when we need to call Poland is when we have 3 or 4 calls at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
Because we can get an EMT on scene with the fire truck. And then if the ambulance needed, then we get the ambulance on scene.
So there's really no way around that, because you're perfectly fine most of the time, but that
Yes.
time that you get 3 or 4 calls, there's really not a whole lot that could be done to help that. We don't have the need to
On
have
a
2
regular
ambulances,
basis.
or we don't have the need to have we can't
Right.
facilitate all these things, because my thought was, if we did put people on call at a low rate and paid them for coming out, in addition to that, it would kind of always leave us with somebody on, basically waiting to facilitate that need.
Yes.
It would cost us a little bit more, but we wouldn't have those
Those-
lumps of downtime.
We need a little bit more data before we get into that point of basically what you're saying is staffing it almost full-time.
Right.
And like I said, though,
It may be our long-term goal.
yeah,
Right now, I don't think we have enough data to pursue that.
sure. But in the future, that might be something you look
Yes.
into based on,
I'd like to get almost a full year of this information
sure.
to see what our income's going to be, and if we need to supplement it with a possible, levy or something.
Right now, that
Ideally-
money is going into the account that council set up, and it's not being expended. It's
Okay.
just being collected.
But there also might come a point where we assess this in a year or so and say, listen, this is, the deficit that this is creating is $200,000. We're better off doing what Camel does and paying an ambulance service $300,000 to come here and
Well-
not,
I would say yes, but private ambulance services are going away. I think,
And I would say that we couldn't afford it, you'd have to look at
you
putting.
you
a
definitely
levy
have to
on it.
levy.
Okay.
You definitely have to levy.
well, I guess my thing is, Chrissy, if this is running at that much of a deficit where it's close, we would probably be better off hiring in and not dealing with the in-house headache
With the
of,
overtime that we're paying because of it, it would probably equal out.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but
Well, we're getting revenue in,
The
so I mean,
big- the biggest-
what's,
But you're gonna have
what's
to-
the difference?
correct, you'll have to find
Yeah.
a breaking point
Right.
there where, what kind of deficit is this actually running?
And I guess the other question is, how well is EMT working for Campbell? I mean, are
Good
they,
point.
are
They
they?
they get one ambulance. I don't know
Okay.
because they just started doing that, so I don't know any data that they
Right.
have over there. I will tell you that a lot of your ambulance services are going out of business.
I did
Yeah.
hear
Lane
that.
ambulance
Yeah.
service is really reducing down to basically boardmen only. And boardmen's looking at adding ambulance of their own. The private ambulance services are really struggling, and for several reasons. The refund, of course, and just the lack of getting paramedics.
Camel put theirs, they put something on the levy for the
Yeah.
ambulance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
300,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if
Ronnie,
they don't pass,
You're
then-
retired,
But
you should
that's-
get
that
an
works.
ambulance,
Yeah,
start your own ambulance.
That works as
company.
long
go
as you
in.
can have
You
that.
should go out.
Instead of buses,
Yeah, do it.
yeah.
And I think
you'd set a buses
And
up
Mike.
without ambulance.
In Mike, yeah, there you
No,
go.
Mike, if you get a bus,
Where
you
you
could
busy?
get 4 or 5 people to the hospital at one time.
So,
What if we, is that still an option for when we hire new firemen to, I mean, I don't understand why that would be
Well,
a requirement.
the firemen, we are going to prefer firemen, the firemen paramedics, or at least firemen EMTs. The problem with that is, and you start requiring your firemen to be firemen paramedics, the cost goes up. So then you have to start raising their rates to basically be in competition with every other community around there who's looking for the same thing.
Sure.
And we have to
Absolutely.
amend their contract, that this,
Yeah.
we couldn't even preferentially hire with
No.
how our union contract.
Contracts reach right now.
So how much longer do you figure it'll be before we can figure out where we're at as far as if we're, how far in the hole we might be, or
In the
if
red or
we're
in the
breaking
black,
even, yeah.
I would like to see at least 3 more months of data. You know, I think from that point, we'll be at close to the end of the fiscal year. We'll be able to look more at the data that we actually spend and what we
Do
received
you think
in.
the fire chief is able to, does he have records to differentiate what was overtime for vacation,
vacation.
holiday, or fire, and what was overtime for medical?
I think he can, based on the number of runs that he has. You know, using the data off of MediCount, he should be able to
I wonder
determine.
if he would know the rate of pay, he'd know when they ran, but he wouldn't know the rate of pay of that person. Maybe that's something we could ask him to start
Yeah,
doing from this point on,
to
if he's
get
not
a
on
more
that.
accurate figure,
Because there's
yeah.
gonna be no way for me to be able to differentiate. I could look at it aggregately, like, hey, from this period to this period, but I couldn't say with certainty what the, we could
Right.
Right.
make an assumption what the
Right.
cause is, but.
But we won't really know, I mean, when somebody
Numbers.
comes out, if they come out to make that run, they're on overtime,
Right, it's-
we're now
The
paying us.
in-house,
Correct.
at the department, they will have to do those.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the thing, so here's what I've been told anyways. Our fire department is excellent at getting to a call.
Yes,
And they get there quick. They're
yes.
there, they can assess, they can do, there's only so much they can do. And we are not good at getting people to the hospital or getting them where they need to be.
That is a common problem throughout the county.
And I get that, but, so,
We go on scene and you don't know, when they dispatch in the fire truck. And at that point, they don't know if they're gonna have to transport or not. So they do an assessment once they're on scene, whether a transport is gonna be needed or not. At that point, they're gonna call EMT to see if their ambulance is available for transport. And if it's not, then they tone out to try to get somebody else to get an ambulance on, our ambulance on scene.
but I think as a citizen of the city of Struthers, or as a person that lives here, it should be a priority. I mean, not just the way I
Oh,
feel,
I-
it should definitely be
agree.
a priority
Without a
because we have older people, it's a lot of older people, and it could be me, it could be you.
Could be me,
anybody.
I'm older.
Sure.
It could be
I absolutely
anybody,
agree with you.
Old,
Yeah,
no,
but
right
right
now,
now,
at this
our
time, we can't-
firemen that are doing the assessing the patient, they're able to take care of that patient on site.
Yes,
It's just a matter of
it's just
transportation,
a transport.
because it's not like they're.
They are
like-
being
Yeah,
treated.
they
Yeah.
are being treated.
But they can't give medications.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
Oh, they can now?
Yeah, some of ours can. We
Yeah.
do
Okay.
have, we have paramedic.
But you have to
firemen.
have a paramedic,
Yes.
Right.
Well,
so,
A
you
lot
don't,
of-
a paramedic can administer almost all drugs. Your basics can administer some drugs.
Okay.
So there's a difference. You always would prefer a paramedic on scene, but your basics have some capability.
So the,
It's just
the
not-
positive is that we do get there at
it
a
is
really
a
good
positive,
time.
yes, we get there.
And they're
but-
able to take care of that patient, it's just a matter of transportation.
Yes.
And I think a big problem with that is you have to have a paramedic drive the
But
truck.
there's still times that they're
I
not
think
able to
that's
take care of
foolish.
it.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And once they're in it, they can't leave
You
us.
can't leave.
So then you're taking our firemen off,
Right,
and then what if there's a fire?
But right now, we're not in a position to staff ambulance service full-time. It would be ideal, but we're not in that position right now.
3 months from now, we run these numbers and we figure out
Yeah.
the best way to approach it.
but the
right?
patient that's in peril
patients
is
are
being
being
well
treated.
taken care of,
Yes.
so
We're
that.
taking
that's
care
all
of the
that
best of
matters.
our ability.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I mean, as
But
best as a paramedic.
I'm gonna
could
tell
be.
you, every EMT ambulance service doesn't have a paramedic on every ambulance. They run a lot of their ambulance with a basic, and they'll have a roving paramedic. And that paramedic only comes when he is needed on the scene. So they'll bring an ambulance, doesn't necessarily mean a paramedic's with that ambulance.
Who's driving the ambulance?
Well, they'll have two basics on there, two
Basic
basic basics, yeah.
And those basics can take you to the
Or
hospital?
Advanced basics, I guess. Yes,
They do.
yes, they can. It's the amount of treatment that they can administer on that trip to the hospital. You know, So if it's not life-threatening, if it's a broken leg or something, you don't need a paramedic.
I think the overall
You can just
state
transport them
should
with an advanced.
do something about
Yeah.
that, the driving part. of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let me tell you what happened. Saturday, my neighbor went down, and it was serious. EMT showed up, they had two guys there. Because of the seriousness of the nature of the call, both of them had a ride in the back, so one of our guys had to drive their ambulance.
So that's basically against the law.
As long as you have the two,
You have to have the two on,
Right.
well, for the city, we have to have two people on the, you can have three people there if you want, but we have to have two EMTs.
the two.
So what's the difference if there's an I know, if you have an EMT taking care of a patient and the fireman drives the truck back to the hospital?
Okay,
There shouldn't be a difference.
Yeah.
There's,
They can drive a fire truck, they
Right.
can't drive an
I
ambulance.
absolutely agree with you, and that's
But
why
I
the
know,
counties are set up.
but they're
the
always
townships
saying
are set
what
up.
happens if that EMT goes down or something.
that's why you gotta have two.
Right.
The two,
But
the two had to be,
scenario
the two.
nowadays is not
Well,
feasible.
the difference is, the two that was in the call on Saturday, they were in the back with the
I
patient.
understand.
Not one driving, not one in the back. Because of the seriousness of the call, the
But-
two EMTs had to be in the back.
Right. But legally, an EMT has to drive that truck.
No,
No. You gotta have two EMTs on the
for
vehicle.
the city, you have to have two EMTs, for the city.
I
For a
thought-
privatized
For the
service.
township, and the
Yeah,
township
township
only
is
needs
different.
one EMT and an emergency driver, which could be a policeman, a fireman, or anybody that's trained to drive an emergency vehicle.
EMT.
That's only a requirement for cities.
Oh, okay.
That's
That's crazy.
EMT shuttle.
So if it would have been our own ambulance, you needed them, but because it was a private company, they were allowed to use our firemen.
Yes, because they're emergency drivers.
Because we didn't own them, city didn't own them.
No, he died. So that's what I'm
So
saying.
start your
You know, you
ambulance
have two
service, city
EMTs,
not
one
own it.
That does not seem profitable, I'm gonna be
You'd
honest.
have the headquarters on 224.
Well, I'll be honest, what I have here is statistical data that's gonna tell me if it's profitable or not, so I'll wait the 3 months.
Lane Ambulance Service is one of the bigger ambulance services, and they were one of the best ambulance
And
services.
they were
And they're
very
struggling.
expensive, they were very expensive when they wanted us to.
Yes.
Rob Goodman came with our ambulance.
And it's all a matter of number of runs. You have to make enough runs to justify the ambulance. So one run a day doesn't justify it. That's why they want money to come in here to cover. If they were running 5 or 6 runs a
Yeah.
Run
day,
a fire
they can,
Well,
department
yeah.
and an ambulance service together.
100%.
Yeah.
We'll get back to it when we have enough data to
I
actually
just want to let you know, the guys are working hard out there.
appreciate it.
Anything else, Bob?
No.
Any questions for our safety director? Motion to adjourn caucus.
Motion?